Hey guys, it's Micah Buzan, and I'm talking about spontaneous creativity, which is creativity that is spontaneous in the sense that it appears to happen out of nowhere, but actually, in a sense, nothing spontaneous because every action is dependent upon an action that happened in the past. Like being born seems really random, but things happen to make you be born. Some people assume that certain people are born creative whereas others aren't, but I actually think everyone's creative because just forming a sentence is creative. Every action is inherently creative. Having a conversation with someone is a creative act because you have to bounce ideas off of another human. That's why making these YouTube videos, it still feels very bizarre to me. I'm sure if I vlogged every day, this would eventually feel normal, just talking into a camera, but the human element isn't here. Um, in a real conversation, I would be reacting to someone, listening to them, interpreting their facial expressions. But in this situation, I'm just in this social vacuum, like playing around in the laboratory of my own mind. You can never have the exact same conversation twice. Even if you repeated the exact same words, there would be different bodily sensations. The inflections in your voice would be slightly different. Your emotions would be different. We're fickle creatures. We're never consistently happy or just sad all the time, unless like you are struggling with depression or some mental illness that forces your mind to be in a really dark place most of the time. But even still, you can't just have one thought all the time. You'll have some other dark thought. So just existing itself, you can't help but be creative. You can't help but be creating all these new thoughts. And of course, what you create it's taken from things that are outside of yourself. So there's really no separation between yourself and where you exist. You can't isolate the biology of an organism from the environment it lives in. You can't isolate the behavior of a person from the social context in which that behavior occurs. It's all part of one whole, and everything's changing. It's like that Greek philosopher Heraclitus. He talked something about how you can't walk into the same river twice because rivers are in a constant state of change. The water flowing through the river, it's always moving some pebbles along, and the river's this growing thing that shifts and changes. So, and humans are the same way. We're all always changing. So it's impossible not to be creative. It's spontaneous. It just happens. So with that, I would say the takeaway of what I'm trying to get at is that you don't have to worry about defining yourself as creative or not creative. It's already there. You just have to go with it and just make stuff. And the more you practice your craft, the more automatic it will become, to the point where you don't even have to worry about these external things to compare yourself to. So with that, I have to go. I think my friend's here to pick me up. I'm talking to a 5th grade class today about probably art or something. I don't even know. We made a Christmas book a few years ago, and she's going to read it, and I'm bringing some drawings. And I'll probably just try not to have an anxiety attack. So I'm going to go. Alright, hello again. I am back from talking to a couple 5th grade classes about art with my friend Kristen. She read our children's book to them, and then we just answered a bunch of questions about writing and making a book because their class was doing something about writing fiction. And we were really nervous on the ride up there because we didn't know what to expect. Um, but afterwards, we had a good conversation about how stupid it is to worry about things because you can never anticipate the future, really. And like, your worries will never be as bad as reality. And even if all your worst fears come true, we're not smart enough to predict what will go wrong because we're not psychic. We can't know what's going to go wrong. So having anxiety and worrying about stuff is wasted energy. It doesn't make any sense. It's strange because even though logically I know this to be true, like intellectually I know that worrying is stupid and pointless, at an emotional level I still experience it. But once we got there and started talking and we're actually in the moment in the classroom, instead of just worrying what's the class going to be like, once you're actually there, the mind can't worry about what's going to happen because you're in the situation of it happening, and it's not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. And in fact, it was really fun to talk to kids about the creative process, and I realized that passion trumps social anxiety. Like, I'm not a naturally good public speaker, but no one's really naturally good at anything. I think you have to work really hard at something to get good. You babble before you can speak. You scribble before you can even draw a stick figure. So public speaking, like, I had my limited experience with public speaking is like in high school, reading certain things in front of a class and stuttering and feeling really nervous. So that's the experiences I had to draw on. But I also realized that making these videos is a form of public speaking because I'm communicating my ideas in front of an audience. So, like, the experiences of making these YouTube videos actually helped me with just talking in front of this class. And again, since it was a topic I'm passionate about, the passion outweighed whatever initial nervousness I had about the situation. Plus, like, fifth graders, they're passionate, they're really energetic, but they're also smarter than like first graders. So they actually have legitimate questions to ask you, and they're curious creatures. So it was just a good conversation, and I'd like to do more things like this. I'm trying to embrace the idea of spontaneous creativity and apply it to other things, like outside of just art, apply it to just life in general. Like, this speaking engagement was totally random, and I told Kristen I was too nervous to do it, and then she's like, please don't make me go by myself. And then it's like, nervousness goes away once you start putting other people first. Instead of just worrying about myself, like, oh, this makes me uncomfortable, I started thinking about her, and also about the kids who, like, what would I be taking away from them if I didn't go and talk to them about the creative process and drawing. And like, I started remembering when I was a kid, like, some different people who came to the school and talked about like art and how it inspired me when I was in high school. Like, if they were too nervous to go, then that would have been keeping value away from me. So that's, like, I realized, like, this is a really effective strategy to overcome anxiety, is start viewing it as like, okay, an effective strategy to overcome anxiety is to get out of your own head, because that's the only place anxiety exists, is in my own head. But once I start trying to, like, use empathy or compassion and put myself in someone else's head, I suddenly view myself as this thing that's outside of myself that could potentially give value to someone else, if that makes sense. So that is the end of my sentences.